Hey everyone, I'm Scott from HZAD Education, and today we're going through the CELPIP examination speaking part. If you feel nervous, don't worry, we have the tips and tricks to help you feel more confident during the test. So let's get started. Today you will see me going through the examination as a native English speaker. I will also be critiquing myself. But first, we need to know what are the examiners actually looking for. Let's check it out. These are the four main areas that the examiner will be looking for. Your coherence and clarity is how well can you organize your speech. Now, generally, they're all about 90 seconds, so it's very short. But you need to have a logical flow with an introduction, main points, perhaps examples, and a nice conclusion sentence. The next is your vocabulary. The vocabulary is something that you can perhaps plan for during the 30 seconds of preparation, but we're looking for a range of vocabulary, also showing that you have academic language and idiomatic usage. Idioms or phrasal verbs will help you to sound more natural and like a native speaker. The next is task fulfillment. Did you answer the question? That's all. Listenability is about how easy is it to understand you. Pronunciation and fluency will count for these areas. So we're going to start with the questions. Now you can listen to me and I'll critique myself, and I'm not an easy judge. The first question starts out quite easy. What they are looking for is your ability to have small talk with another person. Quick tip number 1, pretend that you are speaking to someone and try not to get awkward because you are not talking to your best friend. It says, talk about one of your best friends. You have 30 seconds to prepare, and speaking time is 60 seconds. So you could watch me prepare. Today, I would like to talk about one of my best friends. And we met through a workshop in which we were both looking to enhance our public speaking abilities. Now, the reason that we are great friends is because we both have our own companies and we like to be very creative. I admire him because he is a forward thinker. This means that he likes to plan and project the future. I also really appreciate his ability to connect with nature. He likes to go for hikes in the mountains, and he also cares about the environment. To me, these are great qualities in a person. We are able to hang out together at a coffee shop or go for walks because we like the same subjects. And that's why he's been a great friend of mine. So as you'll see in that topic, I talked about my friend, where we met. I used some vocabulary like admired, just to show that I understand this vocabulary. Now, it's a very simple conversation, but try to think of 2 or 3 really good qualities you like about your friend. Ready for the next one? The next question says, it's your friend's first time cooking on her own. Advise her on how to cook. Let's begin our thinking time. The first thing I would do to advise you on how to cook is find food that you enjoy cooking and is not too difficult. Have the right equipment for the kitchen. You will need a really good knife, a cutting board, all of the right ingredients for your meal, and you probably will need a stove or an air fryer, which are becoming a lot more popular these days. In order to cook, you should follow the instructions. Find a cookbook or print one online. And then start with the basics. Cut your vegetables, chop them. You might need to saute the vegetables as well. I would recommend using a rice cooker for the rice and then grill the meat to your taste. This is my favorite type of food. Okay, as you heard, during that speech, I wanted to give an example of the type of food that they should cook. I also used words like ingredients, saute, chop, grill, because these are very topical for food. You don't have to tell them what to cook, but you want to tell them how to cook. So focus on cooking vocabulary. And that should get you a high score. Let's continue. The next sections are going to be increasingly more difficult. Now, quick tip number 2, do not waste time thinking about a real scenario or trying to find all of the perfect examples for the examiner. The goal is that the first thing that pops into your mind is what you should elaborate on. You only have 30 seconds to prepare, so don't waste time thinking about the best example. The next question says, talk about a time when you faced a terrible weather situation. You may talk about a natural disaster, an inconvenient weather scenario, or the weather's effect on yourself on a certain day. Explain the situation in detail. Now, quick note, be sure to talk about your examples. Try not to just list off different types of weather. So you want to be thinking about something that happened to you. Let's begin the thinking. For many years, I lived in Vancouver, Canada. Now, typically, they have a very temperate climate. It rains a lot in the winter. However, there was one year where I faced a really inconvenient weather scenario. There was a snowstorm, and then the weather warmed up overnight and froze again the next morning. This means it created a lot of black ice on the roads, a very dangerous scenario for many drivers. The city also has a lot of hills and mountains. So on the inclines or the declines, there was a lot of cars piled up at the bottom. This caused a crash that I witnessed, and also my bus was late because of the terrible circumstances. So that was about the snowstorm. Okay, I'm going to be harsh on myself. I didn't love that presentation. What I did like is that I had an introduction, I had main points, and I mostly used my time accordingly, and I used a lot of vocabulary. However, I felt like my speech just wasn't coherent enough and it didn't have a great logical flow. In fact, I probably wanted more time to speak about it. I was trying to add too much detail to my story. What I would do differently is focus on the real situation, which would be the pileup of cars due to the black ice. I would probably avoid other information about Vancouver's temperate climate, though I did like that word temperate. So if I were to do that again, I would focus more on the exact situation and how that affected my life. But I still think it was okay. In the next section, we are going to have one picture and it will be repeated twice. In this picture, we have to describe what is happening and we have to pretend that the other person cannot see it. So use your descriptive language. Let's begin our thinking time. In this picture, we can see many different people crowding around a chocolate fondue. There is maybe 5 levels of the chocolate fondue, so it's very appealing for all of the children. Although there does seem to be an equal mix of children and adults. So we can't exactly understand if it's a birthday party or a public event. The children and the parents are reaching towards the chocolate fondue. They are dipping different types of food. They hold the food with a skewer. I can see a wooden skewer. And they put it in the chocolate fondue set. It's a very crowded room. It looks like a classroom because there are pictures on the background and the walls are blue. There is almost no space for another person. That is how full the room seems. Now, evaluating myself, that was an okay presentation. I used some good descriptive words like the fondue, crowded, equal mix of adults and children, skewers. These are all good topical words. I think I organized it fairly well, starting with the main idea of the picture and then adding more and more details. Remember, you are describing this to someone who cannot see it. So you can use other descriptive words about the room, the amount of people, the age groups, even the pictures on the wall will help to describe this scenario. In the next section, we will likely be using the future tense, and the examiner will be looking for ways that you can make predictions in the future. So these will be mostly complex sentences. You can use conditional sentences like if, then, or if would happen. So let's get started. What do you think will happen in the next picture? Start a thinking time. My assumption for what will happen in this picture is that all of the children will get their fair share of chocolate, and perhaps they will feel sick afterwards. It looks like there is a large crowd right now, so in the next few minutes, the crowd will thin out, or people will disperse across the room, because kids can only eat a certain amount of chocolate. Once they feel satisfied, I think they will move to another room because there are 2 more doors and possibly more. Maybe they will go into the other rooms to do other activities, something that is related to a birthday party. Now, after the kids clear out, I think the parents will probably have some chocolate themselves, and they will join the kids in another room to play other games. Okay, now it's kind of hard to predict what will happen. Be creative, but use items in the picture to guide your story. I focused on the large crowd and how that will thin out or disperse. Good keywords. And then I also focused on the 2 other doors because something might happen where they go into another room. This room is just far too full for any more activities. As we move on, the questions continue to get harder. Next, you will have to compare 2 items, and we will do this for 2 or 3 different questions. The main thing is that you can support your answer using reason. So you make a statement where you choose one option, and then you support your statement using examples, ideas, personal experiences. This is practicing your persuasive or convincing speaking. Now, try to check out some persuasive vocabulary. We're looking for strong words like you must, you ought to, it's a good idea to. Try to avoid words like I think you should or it would be okay if. So we want strong vocabulary because you're trying to prove yourself right. Let's begin. As you can see, we have 60 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds for speaking. That's because you really need to read both sides of the argument and choose your opinion. Think of at least 2 examples why. It says, you have some extra money at the end of the year. You are thinking of a smart way to spend it. Personally, you want to gift yourself a home. However, you are considering being generous and giving it all to charity as well. Pick one of the options, and on the next page, you will persuade your spouse to consider your option versus hers. So first, let's go through it. This is part of my speaking time, or my thinking time. So in my thinking time, I'm looking at new house or charity. Don't waste time debating which one is the most ethical or which one is the best answer. Just go with your first idea. New house. We have investments that will grow in value. Everyone in the family will benefit. It will be a symbol of your success, and you can possibly make it an income source through rent. So at this point, I'm not even reading about charity. I'm just going to focus on the new house. And we already have a lot of ideas because they give us 4 bullet points. You're welcome to create your own ideas, but we're looking for logical sentences where you can string together these ideas and support your ideas in a logical way. 10 more seconds for thinking. We will begin our speaking soon. Personally, if I had extra money at the end of the year, I would like to invest it into a new house. For this reason, it is because I want to grow my investment portfolio. And recently, the housing market has been very positive. In addition to that, it would benefit my entire family. My grandparents could move in with us, and therefore we would all benefit and grow as a family. Furthermore, I think it would be a great symbol of my success. We can use this house to rent it, therefore making a rental income. So it would continue to benefit my family in the long run or in the foreseeable future. This would also help my wife because she has been wanting a new kitchen where she can cook delicious meals. So all in all, I would choose the new house. Okay, critiquing myself, I think that was okay. It could have been better. I used some examples that were presented here, and I used a lot of good phrasal verbs or natural sounding like all in all, or in addition to, and these types of vocabularies helped. I didn't have time for much targeted vocabulary, but I used words like rental pool, investments, and that will help me to get a higher score. But just wait, because there are more aspects to this question. On the next page, you'll see that you have two options. If you choose the new house, you would go to this picture. And if you chose the charity, you would go to the next one, which would look like this. But I chose the new house. So then it says, your partner prefers using the money to go on vacation instead. Convince him or her that your option is better. Now you really have to convince them. So let's start our 60-second speaking time. Let's begin. Hey honey, I know that you want to go on a vacation with our additional money from this year. However, I still think a house would be a better idea for us. You mentioned that a vacation would be a great memory. Although a house would be a great memory for our family forever. We can make lasting memories with our children. Additionally, you said that you wanted to see new places and people. We can still do this after we pay off the house. But for the foreseeable future, the house is a great investment to build up our personal income. I know you want to de-stress, but in the contrast, once we move into our new home, I am certain you will feel comfortable and you will be de-stressed from your regular daily work. So if you believe me, I know that we can invest in the new house and we would be very satisfied and comfortable in our house. Okay, in this section, I want you to focus on transitional words where we are contrasting two things. Words like however, in contrast, on the other hand, conditionally. So these types of words help us to show that we are debating two subjects. You like this, however, I like this. Or you want this, but in contrast, I want this. Now, on both sides of those sentences, you still need to use vocabulary words, but these are complex sentences. We are using transitional words to move from one idea, in contrast, to another idea. You can use on the other hand, which is a more common phrase. Okay, let's continue. Now, in the next section, we still have 60 seconds to prepare because we are still contrasting two main arguments. Similar idea, but more specific. It says, your son wants to focus on his football career as he is really good at sports. However, your spouse wants him to be more pragmatic and quit sports in order for him to focus on his studies. Either convince your son to drop out of his team and concentrate on his studies, or convince your spouse to be confident in the son's decision. Identify the speaker whom you're speaking to, and then build your ideas. Let's begin thinking. Hey honey, I understand that you want little Tommy to quit sports and focus more on his studies. However, I don't want to discourage him from aspiring to be something he enjoys. He is an excellent soccer player or football player, and he has great potential to become a professional player, or at least semi-professional. And I know you think that his studies are more important. However, we can focus on his studies and also focus on becoming a great football star. Now, we have plenty of time in the week, and what I suggest is that we split his time between football and his studies. I will ensure that he finishes all of his homework and diligently studies for his exams. But in addition to that, I will also make sure that he is enjoying his football time and can aspire to be a football star. Okay, I think I was pretty satisfied with that. I used some great transitional words. I showed that I understand my wife's point of view, but I stayed true to my point of view. I also proposed a solution, and that's a really important part in all types of debating. We can state our opinion, provide examples, and then share a solution. This shows that you can logically order your structured sentences and you can think coherently about both topics. And I also addressed my wife and talked about our fake son, little Tommy, I think it was, and that's okay. The next two sections are going to test your understanding of vocabulary because the questions themselves will have high-level vocabulary. Now, quick tip, if you don't know a few of the words in the sentence or in the prompt, do not waste time trying to understand the meaning or thinking about it. Take what you understand from the question, try your best to answer most of the question, because some of the vocabulary will be quite hard. But all in all, you should try to build up your vocabulary to understand these more. Let's check them out. This question is more like a debate. Definitely, you need to have supporting ideas. Follow the format of CER: claim, evidence, reasoning. So you state your opinion, you give evidence like examples, personal experiences, and then you provide more reasoning for why that answer is correct. Note that you have 90 seconds, so take more time to develop your ideas. It says all work that can be done from home should be done from home without the need to go to the office. Do you support this idea? Let's begin thinking. Come up with your examples. Getting ready to begin. So let's start. I support the idea that all work that can be done at home should be done at home. As we saw during the COVID-19 pandemic, most companies had to shift to remote work. This was because people could not go to work due to the virus spreading. And what we saw is that most workers and employees maintained their level of productivity at this time. So that tells us that work that should be done at home can be done at home. Now, this doesn't mean that offices should be obsolete or that we should get rid of all offices. What it means is that employees should be allowed the freedom to take most of their work home and perhaps have a hybrid model where they work at home for 3 or 4 days a week and they return to the office for 1 or 2 days so that they can have in-person meetings with their boss and other employees. I believe that this will help to increase productivity, but also work-life balance and life satisfaction. And I truly understand that happy employees are those that work hard and they're dedicated to the company, therefore profiting the company in the long run. Okay, I was quite satisfied with that presentation. This is the type of work that I typically do, where I have to make a claim and support my reasonings. It follows the idea of public speaking and debating. What I really focused on is the example, the COVID-19 pandemic. I used that to demonstrate I know this question, and then again, I also provided a solution. I provided the hybrid model. I used a lot of good vocabulary in there. Things like remote work, work-life balance or satisfaction, hybrid model, productivity. These types of words are guaranteed to give yourself a good score. But overall, you need a really strong structure. A lot of people make the mistake of just speaking in circles, and there's no real structure. So follow that CER format. Now, in the final section, the words are more difficult, but you have less preparation and speaking time. The biggest mistake that people make here is that they just do not enjoy the topic, and therefore they don't have many ideas. Again, don't waste time thinking about your ideas. Grab the first one that pops into your mind and build on that. So let's read it. You are exploring an ancient building when you stumble upon this painting that you find very intriguing. That means interesting. Call your spouse over and explain to him or her what you see and why you find it interesting. Describe the painting in detail. Okay, there's many important parts here to this question. You find it intriguing. You must call over your spouse. Like, hey, come here, I want you to see something. Describe what you see and why you find it interesting. Many questions there. Call her over, describe what you see, why is it interesting, describe it in detail. So let's begin the thinking time. Hey honey, come over here. I want you to see this picture. There is a grandmother who is knitting something, and she's sitting on a very comfortable chair. And I also see the granddaughter who looks very attentive, like she's asking a question. I like this picture because I can see the old-fashioned relationship between grandmother and granddaughter. There's no technology, they are doing things with their hands, and it looks like the granddaughter is respecting her grandmother. She is very interested in what her grandmother says. She's standing very proudly, and she actually looks humble. She is showing respect to her grandmother. The house also looks like a nice, wealthy house for the time, because there are 2 floors. I can see a staircase. So, honey, what do you think about this picture? Do you like it because of the grandmother and granddaughter relationship? Okay, one thing I would do differently in that picture is I would probably add more vocabulary to describe the picture. I just simply said that it looks like a wealthy house and the daughter looks humble, or the granddaughter, and the grandma is knitting, but I didn't have the greatest vocabulary. So I would try to add that. But you only have 60 seconds, so try to make it personal and memorable. So you have finally finished the exam preparation. If you recorded yourself, check your answers to see if you would get high marks. You could ask yourself plenty of questions. Ask yourself if you got the right tone when you were speaking. Like, did you have a fluent understanding of the language? Did you sound okay so that the examiner can hear you? Did you ask all of the questions and use the time wisely? Did you use advanced vocabulary? And were your ideas logically organized? It's a good idea to record yourself and then listen to yourself after so you can hear from a second point of view. The tip I want you to remember the most is to not waste time thinking about the best answer. Go with the first thing that comes into your mind, build it using that CER format, claim, examples, and reasoning, and use the time accordingly. Don't let yourself use only 30 seconds. Remember to speak for the full 1 minute. Time management is very important, and using good vocabulary is also important. If you find this information helpful, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll keep producing a lot of great videos. I'm Scott from HZAD Education. It's a pleasure working with you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.